Right now on Morning News Now, more legal pushback in the election interference investigation against Donald Trump. This morning, lawyers for the former president are countering the special counsel's request to keep Trump from speaking publicly about the case, calling it a violation of the First Amendment. We have team coverage on the last-minute filing, the political fallout, and what it could mean for Trump's case. Also this morning, developing news, a summer storm slamming parts of the East Coast with millions of people waking up to the damage from heavy rain, hail, and winds. And that is just the beginning. We're tracking the conditions and where the storm is headed next. Plus, new information about an alleged plot to assassinate Ukraine's president. This morning, a Ukrainian woman is now under arrest, accused of tracking President Zelensky's movements for a Russian airstrike. More on what we know about the suspect as the tensions rise over Russia's joint patrols with China. And hug it out. New proof that sometimes all you need is a loving embrace. What researchers are saying about just how many hugs are good for your mental health.
I feel like we're getting back into hugging now in the wake of the pandemic.
For sure.
And you were like, hi.
I'm a hugger. I feel like you are.
I'm usually a hugger,
Yeah.
I'm a little careful just not to assume everyone's a hugger.
Yeah, especially now.
Exactly.
But I don't know. I think now I forget. Now I'm just like, give me a hug.
We'll hug it out a little later. Good morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for joining us. We begin with the escalating battle between former President Trump's legal team and special counsel Jack Smith.
In a late-night filing, the judge overseeing the 2020 election interference case called for a hearing before the end of the week. At issue, that proposed protective order. The move comes after a series of tit-for-tat motions by the special counsel's office and lawyers defending Trump. Yesterday, the former president's legal team asked for a less restrictive alternative to Smith's protective order, arguing it violates Trump's First Amendment rights. The special counsel fired back, accusing Trump of attempting to try the case in the media. At least one former federal prosecutor believes that Smith's request is appropriate in this case.
What this is about is the government is trying to protect the integrity of the judicial process.
You might remember last week, federal prosecutors warned that the release of details or grand jury transcripts could have a chilling effect on witnesses, and they cited the former president's social media posts as a cause for concern. For his part, Trump has pleaded not guilty. We have team coverage of the latest in this legal tug-of-war. Joining us, NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian and NBC News legal analyst Danny Cevallos. Ken, let's start with you. So Trump's team asked the judge to narrow the scope of the government's request. What are the specific changes that they're looking for here?
Well, good morning, Joe and Savannah. The first thing to say is this is not really about Donald Trump's ability to speak about the case. He retains that ability. This is about what he and his team do with the massive amount of evidence that prosecutors are proposing to turn over in what's known as discovery. And that includes witness testimony, records that have been subpoenaed through a grand jury, all kinds of very personal and sensitive information. And in almost every case in a criminal investigation, a protective order is blanketed over that information, forbidding either side from making it public. That's just normal. That's standard. It's normally not challenged. In this case, Donald Trump and his legal team have tried to narrow the proposed protective order in a way that would let them release a lot of information, including about witnesses who testified before the grand jury and gave interviews to the special counsel. And that really worries the special counsel. And the special counsel asserts that this would essentially allow Donald Trump to try this case in the media the way they said his lawyer attempted to do over the weekend when he went on all 5 Sunday shows. And so now the judge has decided, instead of just ruling on the competing set of briefs, she's going to have a hearing about this. It remains to be seen exactly what she will do. But one thing the Trump team has done here is they've successfully bought themselves about a week of delay, which ultimately may be their strategy in this case in all things, guys.
Danny, let's bring you in here. So as Ken just mentioned, we saw his legal team on all these Sunday shows. Of course, the judge and prosecutors have been targets of Donald Trump himself online on his platform, Truth Social. And while a lot of those posts are not directly related to these arguments over the protective order, he's obviously discussing these people, calling them by name, things like that. How likely is it that that particular issue will come up at the hearing? How much we've seen from the former president online?
It definitely will. In fact, it's a central theme of the government's argument. And it's a fair argument. Look, Judge, we've had concerns about Donald Trump speaking and saying inappropriate things. And here's Exhibit A, B, and C. And it's only been about 72 hours. And so I think that's a strong argument for the government. But I also have to caution that, yes, protective orders are common. Protective orders are a good thing. You don't want Rule 6 grand jury material out there. But at the same time, consider this. The defense is having to make this decision on these documents, what should and should not be disclosed, before they even see the documents. And more than that, when this is a very unique case because so much of the material is already known. When we read the indictment, a lot of us were thinking, oh, yeah, I've heard about all of this before from the January 6th committee and then arguably even back during the second impeachment. So the question becomes, just because it's a document that the government turns over, is that now something that Trump cannot reveal, even if he already had it, even if it came from him, between him, a text message? It's a much more tricky case because so much of the material's been public for literally years. And so does it suddenly become something that needs to be protected by virtue of the fact that the government had it on its flash drive when it turned it over to the defendant? So I think this is a trickier issue than people are making it out to be. But it seems that every former federal prosecutor in America disagrees.
So, I mean, Ken, even though we've had an indictment, the investigation continues. Now we have former NYPD Police Commissioner Bernie Kerik met with investigators yesterday talking about Rudy Giuliani's alleged role in efforts to overturn the election. So 2 questions here. First, how does Kerik fit into the case? And then what else have you heard about the ongoing investigations into those anonymous, or at least somewhat anonymous, unindicted co-conspirators who were mentioned in the indictment?
Before I answer that, Joe, a quick note on Danny's point. The proposed protective order does not forbid Donald Trump from making public things that are already in the public domain. Now, on Bernie Kerik, look, he was a chief investigator for Rudy Giuliani, who we believe is unindicted co-conspirator number 1 in this election suppression indictment. And so prosecutors want to talk to him about everything he was doing to explore what we now know are bogus allegations of fraud in the 2020 election, what he told Giuliani, what Giuliani was doing. Kerik has also turned over hundreds of documents to the prosecution, and it just shows that they continue to investigate this case and potentially the roles of those unindicted co-conspirators who remain very much at risk of being charged in this case. Joe and Savannah.
Danny, let's turn now, if you don't mind, before we let you guys go, take a little gear shift here, talk about the Mar-a-Lago documents case for a minute. So totally different investigation, different indictment. In a court filing yesterday, the judge overseeing that case, that's Judge Aileen Cannon, our viewers might remember, she asked the DOJ why there is a second grand jury in D.C. that's also looking into this documents case. Again, this is the Florida one we've seen. How unusual is it to have an out-of-state grand jury continuing to investigate after indictments have happened? It's a federal indictment, but we know that we're seeing all that kind of activity happen down in Florida.
Well, it's unusual because it's such an unprecedented case, and the logic apparently is simply because the other location is a possible situs where some of the possible criminal activity occurred. And that's true. And arguably there could even be additional charges that are not duplicative of the charges in Mar-a-Lago, in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. But it is a fair question as to whether or not this investigation is going to continue and whether or not there are even going to be possible criminal charges. And I don't know exactly how that would work, except that you can imagine that there may be activities that happened in D.C. that could even be charged under the same statutes as the Mar-a-Lago documents case, but they simply happened, the events happened in D.C., and it could be events that grand jury has discovered that we don't even know about. So it's a fair inquiry.
Ken Delaney and Danny Savalos, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Well, now to the latest on the severe weather that continues to have a grip across the U.S. More storms are expected today in parts of the southeast. A line of severe storms moved through parts of Tennessee yesterday. It brought heavy rain, lightning, damaging winds. Look at some of these pictures. Dozens of trees and power lines were toppled by those gusty winds. No serious injuries were reported, though. A little bit of good news. The mid-Atlantic was also hit hard by heavy rain. We saw that here in New York. It impacted drivers on the road in and around the Baltimore area. The storms there knocked out power to tens of thousands of homes and businesses. And the severe weather also caused damage in upstate New York, right outside Syracuse. A tornado is believed to have touched down there yesterday. That has not been confirmed by the National Weather Service, but look at this video. This latest round of severe weather is also impacting travelers as many flights were canceled or delayed. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park has the latest from LaGuardia Airport here in New York.
Well, the summer of extreme weather rages on. The powerful storms marched east and cut a path of destruction in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. There were some spots that saw wind gusts up to 80 miles per hour, knocking down trees as well as power lines. In fact, some federal employees were told to leave work early just as a precaution as government buildings began shutting down. But some workers actually got caught leaving work with unexpected flash flooding. Meanwhile, the same storm system tore through portions of East Tennessee as well as South Carolina and Alabama. A man was struck and killed by lightning. Meanwhile, the travel troubles began piling up at the nation's busiest airports. Here in LaGuardia last night, there were hundreds of delays and cancellations. Fortunately, things are looking much better this morning, but we're still playing catch up. Back to you.
All right, Kathy Park, thank you so much.
So, will things get better? Time now for a check on your morning news now weather.
Angie Lastman is here in studio with us with some answers. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. The short answer to that is yes, they will get better. We're seeing some improvements, especially across a lot of those areas that dealt with some of that severe weather. But we've got another round of some strong storms that we could deal with moving across the country in the coming days. Let's start with what's still left over from that system that impacted us and a lot of folks yesterday. We've got some rain lingering over parts of New England, Syracuse to Burlington, down through Portland, all dealing with kind of some soggy conditions this morning. You'll need your umbrella. We're going to see those showers stick around for a little while longer before the system kind of fully moves out and we get some drier air in place. But this is the look as we get through at least the evening hours tonight. We could still see some flooding concerns in this area. The flash flooding and even some stronger storms are all possible. But look what happens by tomorrow. We'll eventually see it move out of the picture, and we're looking much drier for the middle of your week, especially into the second half of your Wednesday. Between now and then, though, we could pick up some additional rainfall on already saturated ground. So say maybe 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch in places like Vermont. We move a little farther north into most of Maine and even down through Boston, and we could see upwards of 1, 2, even as high as 4 inches of rain as we get through the end of the day tomorrow. So that's the flooding concern that we'll watch through today, with these rainfall rates upwards of 2 inches per hour. Then we turn our attention to the center of the country. That's where we're going to see a storm system working out of parts of the Rockies. But already this morning, we've got a thunderstorm watch in effect. And earlier, we did have some thunderstorm warnings in effect, too, as this line of thunderstorms kind of marches a little farther to the south and east, stretching from Oklahoma into parts of Arkansas, Little Rock, Oklahoma City, Texarkana, Fayetteville, all dealing with some strong storms this morning. So be aware of that. But even as we get into the afternoon hours today, we'll see a larger area that has the potential to see some of these stronger storms, including the strong winds, hail, and even tornado. And this is the system that we're going to watch scoot across the country here, not just today, but into tomorrow, too. You can see it works into parts of the Ohio to Tennessee Valley. We'll see the severe risk that will extend from Oklahoma to Tennessee. As far as today's severe risk, it's centered from parts of the southeast for 7 million people up into parts of the plains. That's where we see places like Denver, North Platte, Great Bend included in this, and then Montgomery, Jackson, Jacksonville, and Savannah all included, too. The main hazards are going to be more of the same, kind of what we dealt with yesterday in some other spots. It's the large hail up to 2 inches in diameter. We could see those wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. And we, of course, won't rule out a couple of these tornadoes. If you're looking ahead to tomorrow, this is the area that you're going to want to watch for some of the stronger storms. 15 million people at risk, those same hazards. It does include major cities like St. Louis, Tulsa, Springfield, Little Rock, and Nashville. So we'll watch for those stronger storms to be with us tomorrow, too. And on top of that, more rain. And again, already saturated areas, 1 inch to 2 inches, not out of the question. We could, of course, see inches of rain that are a little higher than that, but we'll keep a close eye on that through the next couple of days. And we can't not talk about the heat, right? At least the Southwest isn't dealing with those heat alerts this morning, but we do have plenty of folks, 52 million people actually, stretching across the South that are dealing with the heat alerts this morning and into the afternoon hours today. And we could see heat index values up to 115 or even higher. We've got 90s for sure in places like New Orleans for the next couple of days, high 90s throughout Jacksonville through the rest of the week, and triple digits across Texas. This is something they've been dealing with for the extended period, guys, and this is going to be something they continue to deal with through the end of the week. Doesn't look like we have a whole lot of relief for folks there, but in the Northeast, pretty seasonable. Low 70s in Syracuse today, low 80s, of course, tomorrow. And then New York kind of hangs out in that 80-degree range for the next couple of days, while D.C. Sticks into the high 80s by Wednesday. So fairly seasonable for folks across the Midwest, the Northeast, but still hanging on to the heat in the South.
And good to hear that, like, that Arizona area getting a little bit of a break.
Just a little bit.
Finally.
They need it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Angie.
Thank you.
This morning, California is honoring 3 of its bravest. 2 firefighters and a helicopter pilot were killed in the line of duty when their CAL FIRE chopper crashed into another one. NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett has more on the aftermath of the crash.
An investigation into a tragic helicopter crash above Southern California.
Bravo, Air Attack, Pierce, copy, speed air collision between 37 Sierra and 5 Alpha Sierra.
2 CAL FIRE helicopters colliding in midair while fighting a brush fire in Cabazon, about 90 miles east of Los Angeles. One helicopter managing to land safely, but the other chopper crashing to the ground, killing all 3 people on board.
We have lost 3 great individuals, 3 fathers, 3 husbands, 3 friends, 3 sons.
The victims identified as 46-year-old CAL FIRE Assistant Chief Josh Bischoff, 44-year-old CAL FIRE Captain Tim Rodriguez, and 56-year-old contract pilot Tony Sousa. In the hours after the crash, a row of firefighters and dozens of emergency vehicles lining up for an emotional salute to their fallen colleagues. California Governor Gavin Newsom now ordering flags at the state capitol to be flown at half-staff, saying in a statement, "This terrible tragedy is a reminder of the dangers our courageous firefighters face daily while working to keep our communities safe." The FAA and NTSB are now looking into how this happened, while the state's largest fire department mourns 3 of their own.
The sacrifice should not be in vain, that we think about them. We will be there to support them.
Our thanks to Maura Barrett for that report. The crash did cause an additional 4-acre fire that firefighters did manage to put out.
Well, Ukrainian officials say they've arrested a woman in connection with an alleged plot to assassinate President Zelensky. It comes after Russia and China held joint naval patrols off the U.S. coast near Alaska. NBC News Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel has the latest.
Ukrainian intelligence says this unidentified woman is a Russian spy captured while carrying out a plot to assassinate President Zelensky during this trip to Mykolaiv last month. She was allegedly tracking his movements so he could be targeted with a Russian airstrike. The Kremlin so far not commenting on the accusations. With its counteroffensive stalled, Ukraine is pushing the war beyond its borders. There was a sea drone attack last week near a Russian port. But Russian President Vladimir Putin and his ally, China's President Xi, are projecting their power abroad too, sending an alarming new message to the United States, Ukraine's main backer. A patrol of 11 Chinese and Russian warships cruised together near Alaska. The Pentagon saying there was no direct threat, but sending 4 destroyers and a reconnaissance plane as a warning. The threat to Alaska is growing. Lester talking to the top-ranking U.S. military officer there just last month.
How do you see the Chinese threat, the North Korean threat?
I see the Chinese threat ever increasing in the Pacific. I also, I watch their cooperation with the Russians. I look at the Russian access in the Arctic with their bases, and I do have concerns.
China says the patrol was not hostile. China also took part in Ukraine peace talks in Saudi Arabia over the weekend. Negotiators only agreed to meet again. Richard Engel, NBC News.
Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, caught on camera, an all-out brawl gone viral on social media. What we're learning about this fight that's reigniting a race debate.
Up first, though, after the break, President Biden goes west. We'll go through what's on his agenda today when we come back. We are back now with the White House making a big push to highlight the president's accomplishments ahead of the 2024 election.
So today, President Biden will be in Arizona to kick off a multi-day, multi-state tour. NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell joins us now with more on that. Kelly, good morning. So the president is going to announce a new national monument to preserve more than 1,500 square miles around the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Tell us more about what led to this decision.
Well, you know that phrase, Joe, go west? Well, certainly that is what President Biden is doing, and a number of his top cabinet officials are, too. This is a way to try to, through policy, emphasize some of the things that this administration believes is very important, honoring cultural sites, working on climate issues, and at the same time, there are electoral benefits. Going to Arizona, a state President Biden won, a state that has often been contested, and answering some of the concerns, questions, and responding to what matters to many Arizonans, a love for their cultural and natural sites. So think of this, 1 million acres being named as the 5th national monument that President Biden has enacted through the stroke of a pen, through the power of the office. That's important. It's also responsive to the Native American tribes that are part of the culture and the community that is Arizona. So that's part of it. And this also speaks to issues like climate that the president believes are important legacy items for his time in office, but also things that might motivate certainly Democrats, independents, and others to the polls. This is about doing work that is official business, but there is, you can argue, a campaign benefit for the president as well.
Kelly, we also know that the president is expected to travel to New Mexico and Utah later in the week to tout to other big accomplishments. Tell us about that.
Interesting. New Mexico, also another swing state, one that is tight, one that is highly competitive, and that's part of it. Utah, again, the importance, now that's certainly a Republican state, but the importance of these cultural sites, the Biden economic plan, and trying to deal with some of the climate issues. We'll also see a number of the cabinet officials going out. We'll see the president also touting the PACT Act, which deals with veterans' concerns and their needs. Talking about accomplishments, this White House says that it has made in its 2.5 years in office that are responsive to the needs of the public and also at the same time targeting those election messages by doing it. And going west also gives you the benefit, if you're a president and a candidate running for re-election, of those sweeping, beautiful vistas of the great west of the United States and talking about policy. So this is policy meets politics on this trip out west. Savannah,
right.
Joe?
Kelly, thank you so much. Well, this morning, thousands of U.S. Marines and sailors are arriving in the Persian Gulf. They were deployed there in an effort to stop Iran from seizing oil tankers. NBC News Pentagon correspondent Courtney Kuby has the latest this morning.
Savannah and Joe, 2 U.S. warships with more than 3,000 U.S. sailors and Marines arrived in the Red Sea on Sunday. They were ordered there after Iranian naval vessels tried to stop, board, and seize 2 oil tankers near the Strait of Hormuz last month. In one case, one of those Iranian ships even fired on and struck one of those commercial oil tankers. In both cases, the Iranian boats turned away after U.S. military ship and U.S. military aircraft arrived on scene. Now, that followed an April incident when masked Iranian commandos seized an oil tanker in the Gulf of Oman. Now, in addition to these ships, there will be a Marine Expeditionary Unit. The 26th MEU will come in from North Carolina. That's part of the Global Response Force. They are there for any kind of a quick reaction that might be needed while these ships are in the region. Iran's foreign ministry responded to this deployment, saying the U.S. military presence only fuels instability in the region. But in the past 2 years alone, Iran has either seized or attempted to seize nearly 20 ships, according to U.S. officials. Savannah, Joe?
All right, Courtney, thank you. Well, let's get you some other international headlines now. A U.S. diplomat was denied a meeting with Niger's elected president by coup leaders.
NBC News foreign correspondent Josh Letterman joins us with that and other world news. Josh, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. The number 2 U.S. diplomat, Toria Nuland, had traveled secretly to Niger, hoping to meet with deposed President Mohamed Bazoum and check how he's doing under house arrest. But she was not allowed to see him. She did meet with leaders of the coup and later called the meeting quite difficult, Toria Nuland saying she told them the U.S. will have to cut off support if democracy is not restored. Now, to here in England, where human rights advocates are calling the UK's program to house asylum seekers on a floating barge inhumane, unhealthy, and a floating prison. The first 15 people have been moved into the Bibby Stockholm barge, but it ultimately will house up to 500 people. And it is part of this UK effort to cut costs and deter migrants from entering the UK on small boats. And finally, to South Korea, where a 3rd member of the hit K-pop group BTS has started military service. Suga, as the rapper is known, will serve at least a year and a half under Korea's mandatory conscription law. Now, the group says Suga expects to return to performing after, and that all 7 members plan to at some point fulfill their military service. So BTS fans out there, do not worry, they will be back. Guys,
that's going to be quite the reunion tour when they all are back from their service.
And they have some serious fans. That's pretty cool. Josh, thank you so much.
Over the weekend, Bolivia celebrated its Independence Day. The Washington, D.C. area is now home to the largest population of Bolivians in the U.S. NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra, whose family is from Bolivia, joined in on the celebration, highlighting a new generation eager to share their culture with the world.
This has become a ritual for Maria Luz Coca Lujan. By day, she works in construction, but by night is when her second job and true passion begins. Putting on a different uniform, one rich and vibrant in color, she wears her culture on her sleeve, a proud Bolivian from head to toe. Speaking Spanish and Quechua, she goes live on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. To the hundreds and thousands of viewers around the world watching, she's known as Cancha, her mission to share la cultura, the culture.
That was my point when I started this one. We just, in the Quechua, we want to keep in, because any language, if we don't use it, we don't speak it will be dying.
She does it all from her Virginia garage just outside Washington, D.C. She's one of roughly 60,000 American Bolivians who call the area home. By leaps and bounds, it is the largest Bolivian population in the United States. There's a name for it. Arlington Bamba. Arlington, Virginia, and Cochabamba, Bolivia are thousands of miles apart, but the play on words reveals a close link. It's one you have to be a part of to really see. There are no statues or murals that give it away. The biggest signs are the restaurants, selling authentic Bolivian dishes like this one, sweet and savory pastries filled with a sort of meat stew known as salteñas.
You can find some Bolivian restaurants here, for sure.
Which is rare. As someone who travels.
I don't think I've ever seen Bolivian restaurants outside of Bolivia.
This pocket of the population is affectionately called Little Bolivia. Between the 60s and the 80s, political turmoil and hyperinflation drove waves of Bolivians to leave the motherland behind in hopes of a new life. Word of mouth spread about one area that showed great promise.
Washington, D.C. at that time really was not an immigrant destination, and immigrants from Bolivia found that they could get into the job market here pretty easily.
Those families eventually laid the groundwork for the Arlington Bamba we know today. My family was no exception. My grandfather moved my dad and the family from Bolivia to the U.S. in the 1960s, eventually settling in Maryland, just an hour away from the closest Bolivian restaurant, which we'd visit every year in Virginia. It was a small way for our family to keep our culture alive. Across generations, food and drink have a way of doing exactly that. Earlier this year, Casa Cantuta began bringing the Bolivian spirit to D.C. nightlife, now the nation's first Bolivian cocktail bar.
The hats identify, ethnicity.
This is where we meet Julia Garcia. She arrived decades ago from Cochabamba, over the years earning the title of Mama Julia, the community's historian.
You're seeing people posting on TikTok that they're proud. What does that feel like for you?
It's so different from 10 years ago. More free than before. Before we was just hiding.
In an age where a generation proudly reclaims their roots online, on a world stage far beyond little Bolivia, now she's filled with pride.
You feel united. You feel like somebody is with you. You are not alone. We feel like that. That's the way that we live in Arlington Bamba.
From Washington, D.C., Marissa Parra, NBC News.
Awesome story, Marissa. Thank you for that. Coming up, you've heard of Sunday scaries, but what about summer scaries? Up next, we'll talk about those back-to-school jitters and how it's impacting kids and also parents. Plus, how a Dallas doctor who's battling cancer is using the power of music to give others hope. You are watching Morning News Now. Welcome back. Time for our weekly mental health check-in. And with back to school season right around the corner, we're talking about the pros and cons of teen mental health days, the end of summer scaries, plus how many hugs you really need in a day. Dr. Soumya Dave, psychiatrist and author of What a Happy Family, joins us now. Hello, doctor. It's always great to have you with us. Thanks for being here for this one. So, look, school's starting back up. In some ways, that's exciting, but a lot of times that can be stressful. It can be anxiety-inducing. And a lot of times when a teen or a child is kind of having those feelings, sometimes parents will say, hey, let me keep you home today, kind of have a mental health day. Other parents might disagree with that route, think it's best for them to go to school. As we head back to school here, is there a right way to handle that situation?
So look, we know that our teens are in the midst of a mental health crisis, and we also know that when any of us care for our mental health, it leads to decreased rates of burnout, depression, anxiety, so many benefits. So I do recommend for parents to have a conversation with their children, with their teens, about what a mental health day would look like and a plan. And that plan can include something rejuvenating, like a yoga class, a therapy appointment, maybe even a lunch date between parent and child to discuss what's really going on here. But really any sort of ritual that can help a child or a teen care for themselves and really provide that support internally is something that can provide so many benefits in the short and the long term.
And doctor, on this same topic, school-induced anxiety, it's not just for kids. It's not just the students heading back. Parents have it too, especially as the end of summer approaches. Tell us more about this end of summer scaries. We all know Sunday scaries. What are end of summer scaries and how to kind of shake that feeling off?
So the end of the summer can really bring up a lot of conflicting emotions for parents and for kids. And so I recommend for parents to have this conversation with their kids and for everyone to discuss their feelings, and starting with open-ended, non-judgmental questions. What emotions are you having? What's coming up for you? What's stressing you out? What can we do about that? And then making a plan that has some agency around it. So that plan can include, how can we incorporate some summer relaxation into these final days? Can we take some things off of your plate for the first couple weeks of the school year? And then, of course, can we keep this an ongoing source of dialogue between the two of us, between the whole family? Because this is something that affects everybody, and talking about it is so important and can go such a long way.
I like that last one, too, on our graphic there, adults and kids having that weekly prep time on Sunday. That's something my husband is big on, which I was always kind of like, no, Sunday fun day. But now it actually does help me kind of, center yourself when you're getting ready for something that's a little bit tougher than the weekend was. Okay, we've been teasing this one all morning. How many hugs do we need in a day? How does this help you? What are the health benefits here?
So a variety of studies have shown that anywhere from 4 to 12 hugs can provide a variety of benefits, including decreasing blood pressure, increasing our immune system strength, decreasing rates of depression and anxiety, improving self-esteem. But I really think the more the better, right? There is no maximum. So if you have the chance for a loving physical embrace in your day, please take it. And for some people, that might be harder to have, right? And so for those people, I recommend hugging ourselves, hugging a pet, hugging a soft toy, and even having a weighted blanket on ourselves. All of those things can provide that idea of that physical comforting touch, which can then lead to those benefits that we just talked about. So there's a way, and I really encourage that.
Wow, think about your hug quota, 4 to 12. Try to get those in. I
4
love
to
that.
12. It's a high quota.
Yeah, it is. Doctor, last one for you, audio journaling. It's a self-care trend that's popping up on social media. What is that exactly, and is it good for you?
So audio journaling describes talking into a voice recording app or voice recording function on your phone and just really letting out your thoughts, right? We know that when we let out our thoughts, when we process them, we decrease stress. And so a lot of people do this through journaling, through recording it and writing it down. For some people, though, that can increase pressure around grammar and sentence structure. And audio journaling can take some of that pressure off. It can allow us to do this in a way that's more unfiltered. It can also potentially be more accessible because we can do this during a walk, during a lunch break, and make it as quick as possible. So I recommend giving it a try if you haven't already. And if you want some more structure, you can look up journal prompts online and then just answer them verbally and see what that feels like.
Wow, yeah, I know. I think sometimes like buying the journal or sitting down and making the time to write would stop people from an activity like that. But just doing that means you can kind of fit it in between other things. Dr. Dave, always great to see you. Thank you very much for joining us today. Now let's get to medical news of a different sort. A Dallas doctor battling stage 4 cancer is adding a little music to the world while trying to help others. Dr. Michelle Nichols is hosting a series of concerts to raise money for fellow cancer patients. And with the help of former students, her husband, and an outpouring of support on social media, the shows are being seen by millions. NBC News correspondent Jay Gray has that story.
There is, many say, a rhythm to life.
I've always loved music. We love live music.
For years, music has quite literally filled the home of Dr. Michelle Nichols, her husband, and their 2 young girls, the family, hosting living room concerts with some of their favorite artists, the shows evolving into fundraisers for area nonprofits.
It's just been fantastic.
Hot drink and coffee. It all started when one of her med students asked to join Michelle during a chemotherapy session when she was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer in 2010. He brought his guitar and remembers one of the songs she requested. The music shifting to the anthem of a fighter.
Never slowed down, worked full-time through chemotherapy, like marathon, ran triathlons, like amazing.
But 7 years after her initial diagnosis, Michelle knew something wasn't right.
That's when the stage 4 diagnosis came.
The battle that's lasted more than a decade now taking its toll.
Started losing muscle mass and realized, okay, things are changing.
Her husband, Greg, a radiologist, recently stepping away from his practice.
I think she said, I just want time with you and the girls, and I really don't want anything else.
But the music never stopped playing. Michelle deciding she wanted to bring the concerts back, the couple sharing their plan with her former student, now a colleague and dear friend.
And they had this moonshot dream of having these worldwide recognized artists perform in their home during their final days, weeks, months.
Overwhelmed, he turned to social media for help.
They have 2 kids who are also beautiful people and who are going to miss their mommy a lot, and they want these final amazing memories together. They said, nothing amazing will ever happen if you don't ask. So I'm asking.
The family emotional as the plea went viral, with more than 2 million views in just a week and bands and artists lining up to play.
This is a really special thing, and I'm just so glad that we're able to do it.
Even singer-songwriter Ben Folds performing a private concert for the family over Zoom this weekend.
I feel so much love. Going through what we're going through, you get demoralized, for sure. But it gives me so much hope.
Her hope, faith, and determination.
Still praying for a miracle.
A light she refuses to allow her illness to dim.
That's what I hope to do with all this, is to shine light in dark places.
Because, she says, no matter what the future holds, there will always be another song to sing.
Wow, our thanks to Jay for that story. Incredible. Coming up, more fallout over this fight gone viral in Alabama. What we're learning from witnesses as officials vow for justice. And some sad news for actress Sandra Bullock after her longtime partner passes away. More on the private health battle he was facing. Next on Morning News Now. Welcome back. Let's get to the fallout in Alabama after a massive brawl broke out on a Montgomery boat dock over the weekend. Now, Montgomery's mayor is vowing that justice will be served. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson has more on this.
Well, in Alabama and across the country, fallout is continuing after that massive brawl on a Montgomery boat dock that has now gone viral. Outrage is growing across the country over these now viral videos appearing to show more than a dozen people in an all-out brawl on the downtown Montgomery riverfront. No arrests have been made, the mayor says, but investigators have issued 4 arrest warrants and say they're reviewing videos of the incident and that more could be coming.
It's something that shouldn't have happened, and it's something that we're investigating right now.
The chaos unfolded Saturday night after witnesses say a worker asked a group multiple times to move their pontoon so a commercial riverboat could dock. Krista Owen says she filmed this video from on board the riverboat.
They're mad that this guy who came off our boat is untying his boat and touching it, but it needed to move.
A brawl starts, and within seconds, several people appear to join in.
Witnessing our poor crewmen being attacked by these guys, and we couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, these white folks jumped on these black men that work security.
After the riverboat docks, fighting erupts again. Police on the ground struggling to contain the chaos, but eventually getting some in handcuffs. The mayor now placing the blame on several reckless individuals for attacking a man who was doing his job and vowing that justice will be served. The mayor declined to say whether investigators believe this fight may have been racially motivated, adding only that the investigation is ongoing.
All right, Priscilla Thompson, thank you so much. Well, turning now to some sad news out of Hollywood. The longtime partner of Academy Award-winning actress Sandra Bullock has passed away after a private battle with ALS. He was 57 years old. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk has more.
Guys, Sandra Bullock kept her relationship with photographer Brian Randall pretty private, but in recent interviews, she referred to him as the love of her life, super kind, and the example she would like her children to have as a father and partner.
Heartbreak this morning for actress Sandra Bullock. Her longtime partner Brian Randall died after a 3-year battle with ALS. Randall's family telling NBC News in a statement that he chose early to keep his journey with ALS private, and those of us who cared for him did our best to honor his request, adding, "At this time we ask for privacy to grieve and to come to terms with the impossibility of saying goodbye to Brian." ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's, is a progressive nervous system disease that impacts the brain and spinal cord. Unfortunately, it has no cure. Randall, a model turned photographer, met Bullock in 2015 when he was hired to photograph her son Louis' birthday party. He later snapped this image for People magazine's cover to celebrate Bullock's adoption of her daughter, Lila. Bullock recently joked about co-parenting alongside Randall on the red carpet to Extra.
I let Bri be the treat guy, and I'm like, you know, we all have our place. We all have our place, but I'm the one that they want to snuggle and sleep with. So my bad cop might not be so bad.
The couple keeping the details of their relationship mostly private.
It was something that was incredibly important to the two of them, and it was by their own rules. They didn't need to put a ring on it or walk down the aisle together to show that they were devoted to each other and their children.
Bullock giving a rare glimpse into her life with Randall on Red Table Talk.
A saint. He has evolved on a level that is not human.
The two-time Academy Award-winning actress also discussed finding love again, nearly a decade after her divorce from Jesse James.
I found the love of my life. We shared 2 beautiful children, 3 children, his older daughter. It's the best thing ever.
Bullock's primary focus since becoming a mother, she told Today.
How would you prioritize your life now?
Well, it's my kids. Everything is about them being okay. My priorities are my kids, my kids, my kids. My family, my family.
And last year, Bullock told Entertainment Tonight she was taking a break from acting indefinitely to do just that.
I just want to be 24/7 with my babies and my family. That's it.
Sandra's sister, Christina Bullock Prado, also spoke out overnight, writing on Instagram in part, "There's some comfort in knowing he had the best of caretakers in my amazing sister and the band of nurses she assembled who helped her look after him in their home." Back to you.
All right, Stephanie, thank you so much. Well, now for what's making financial headlines this morning. Sources say the FTC may be getting closer to filing that antitrust lawsuit against Amazon. CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and more. Hey, Silvana, good morning.
Savannah, good morning to you. Yes, so Amazon executives will reportedly meet with the Federal Trade Commission next week. And the latest sign the agency is close to filing an antitrust case. Sources say this is a so-called last rights meeting, which is often one of the final steps before either a lawsuit or a settlement. The FTC has been probing Amazon's practices in recent years, including whether it favors its own products over competitors and how it treats third-party sellers. The FTC could seek to break up the online retail giant. The remote work revolution may finally be dead. Zoom, which powered the work-from-home movement during the pandemic, is telling its employees to come back to the office. The company says it's now enforcing a structured hybrid approach, meaning employees who live within 50 miles of an office have to work in person at least 2 days a week. It's a dramatic reversal for Zoom, which just last year said fewer than 2% of its staffers would work on site. Mr. Beast's burger company is suing the YouTube star for $100 million. The move comes a week after Mr. Beast, a.k.a. Jimmy Donaldson, sued his namesake virtual restaurant over alleged quality control issues and inedible food that hurt the Mr. Beast brand and reputation. Virtual dining concepts, which makes Mr. Beast brand burgers through a network of ghost kitchens, claims Donaldson didn't deliver on contractual obligations, including promotions and making disparaging statements. Savannah.
All right. Thanks, Savannah. Appreciate it. Yes. The largest jackpot in Mega Millions history is up for grabs. Tonight's drawing, an estimated record-setting $1.5 billion, or a mere lump sum payment of more than $757 million. It's not only the largest jackpot in the game's history, but it's the third largest lottery jackpot ever. By the way, the odds of matching all of the numbers are greater than about 1 in 302 million. So they haven't improved. They're the same odds.
There you go. Always hard.
Exactly.
Coming up, it's being called Wordle for baseball.
When we return, we're going to show you the newest twist on the popular brain teaser that's got even athletes excited. This is Morning News Now.
We are back now with your chance to own something inspired by the hit movie Barbie. Well, Mattel, the company that makes Barbie dolls, of course, is offering a new limited edition Weird Barbie. The doll is based on Kate McKinnon's character, Weird Barbie. She's wearing a bright green dress, green snakeskin boots. She has markings on her face and colored hair just like in the movie. If you want to get your hands on the doll, it's available for pre-order, but only until August 18th. The doll's $50, but they're made to order, so you might have to wait until next year to actually get it. So the whole idea here, also, you see this leg that's up in the air? It's because Weird Barbie's like permanently in the splits, because the idea here is everybody has that Weird Barbie there. You chopped up your hair, you drew on her, she's always in the splits, and then you realize, like, oh, I messed that Barbie up, so that's Weird Barbie. Now you have other ones. Well,
now this one comes already messed up just for you.
Exactly.
Love it. Put that on the list. All right, thanks, Savannah. Finally this hour, first there was Wordle, then there was Hurdle, which was the music version of the game. Now the sports world is taking its turn with the game affectionately known as Wordle for baseball. But it's not just for sports fans. As NBC News correspondent Noah Pransky found out, the athletes can't put it down either.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you want to play, too? Yeah, I would love to play.
Miguel Castro.
Marisnik.
Sandberg. It's too easy over here.
That's cheating.
We'll come back to Mets All-Star Pete Alonso in a minute. But first, what is this thing they call Wordle for baseball? Its name, Immaculate Grid, and it starts with a 3x3 box. Each row and column are represented by a team or statistic. Then you have to guess a player from any time in baseball history that answers each intersection. For instance, a Pirates player who also made an all-star team like Roberto Clemente. Get it right, get a green square. But you only get 9 total guesses. So a wrong guess, like Wordle, lowers the score you're bound to share with other baseball-loving friends. You also get more points for more obscure answers. Also, just like Wordle, it took the internet by storm. It was recently purchased from its inventor by the company that now runs BaseballReference.com.
I think when we first started talking to them, there were maybe like 4,000 or 5,000 games being played per day. I think yesterday we had maybe 225,000 on baseball alone.
That was only 3 months ago. Do the math. It's almost 50% growth every single week. So they've expanded to also offer basketball, football, and hockey grids too. Soccer's coming next.
Okay, you get it. The game is exploding in popularity. And that includes inside the very locker rooms where an answer to the puzzle may be just 1 or 2 seats away. And Adam Ottavino, veteran of 13 Major League seasons and 5 Major League teams, wanted you to know he's especially good at the grid.
I think that some of us are really good at it, and it intimidates the other guys.
Our makeshift game board was enough to turn the radio voice of the Mets, Howie Rose, and home run champ Pete Alonso into brand new players.
This one's going to be good. Sandy Alomar Sr. Beat that.
All right, Al later. Yes, Mariano Rivera.
The legendary broadcaster, 8 for 9. The all-star slugger, 9 for 9. Too easy, he said. So he swapped out a current team with one that left Montreal for D.C. back in 2005.
So I'm going to say Randy Johnson, Gary Carter in the Mets.
Green box.
Dodgers. So, yeah, this is before my time.
When we told Alonso he's allowed to use any player from the franchise's time in Montreal or Washington.
Oh, yeah, Howie.
All right, that's a good answer. Howie Kendrick.
Yeah. So that's cheating. Nationals and no, that's cheating.
Regardless, there's now one more grid fanatic in an already crazed clubhouse. Noah Pransky, NBC News.
It's hard. You really have to know your baseball.
Far over my head. It's not even, yeah. But you are a baseball fan.
I think I could do well in the 80s and 90s. That was like when I was really into baseball because my Minnesota Twins were actually good. I would struggle a little more, I think, with more.
I feel like then if you like played, if you like had a partner, because that seems harder
that would help.
Than knowing modern.
Exactly.
Like deep knowledge.
I need a dream team. All right.
There you go.
That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now. Stay with us. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
And I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, Destruction and devastation across the East Coast and Central Plains overnight. Severe storms slamming some of America's largest cities with torrential downpours and high winds wreaking havoc on thousands of flights. That's all happening as even more heat records are expected to be shattered today across the South. We've got your full forecast with more severe weather expected today for millions. Also this morning, a new target for former President Trump's legal team in the special counsel investigation into Trump's alleged election interference. Why his defense is looking to narrow the scope of that requested protective order, and what it could mean for Trump on the campaign trail and in the courtroom. Plus, new COVID concerns. The CDC is reporting that hospitalizations have been ticking back up over the last few weeks, and it comes as kids across the country are starting to head back to the classroom. What parents need to know. And a story of ageless beauty, the elder athletes who are literally putting the gold back in the golden years, proving that age is just a number. I bet they would do very well at baseball, right. Wordle, right?
I think they just do well at a lot.
Exactly.
Much better than I would.
And beat us on the tennis court and everywhere else. Good to have you with us. We're going to begin this hour with the severe weather and intense heat that continues to have a grip across the country.
More storms are expected today. This is the day after heavy rain and damaging winds caused widespread damage. That's what you're seeing on your screen. The East Coast was hit particularly hard yesterday, causing power outages and downed trees. It also caused flights to be impacted in the Northeast. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park joins us now from LaGuardia Airport here in New York with the latest this morning. Hey, Kathy.
Hey, guys. Good morning to you both. Yeah, we can't seem to catch a break from all of this extreme weather. Those powerful storms cut a path of destruction as they moved east. And this morning, hundreds of thousands are still without power. And last night here in LaGuardia, hundreds of delays and cancellations. And today we're still feeling the impacts.
Overnight, an outbreak of violent storms on the East Coast, unleashing destructive winds, torrential downpours, and damaging hail.
Aaron!
In Westminster, Maryland, dozens of people, including children, were stuck in their cars after nearly 30 power poles came crashing down. Everyone was safely rescued.
I've never seen anything like this before in my entire life.
The stormy conditions continuing up and down the East Coast, bringing dangerous winds and reports of tornadoes, and roads flooding as drivers struggle to get home. In the Washington, D.C. suburbs, wind gusts up to 80 miles per hour at the height of rush hour, slamming trees into homes and onto power lines. Ahead of the bad weather, federal workers in the nation's capital urged to leave work early Monday.
This is the most ominous shot of the day.
The same storm system hammering parts of East Tennessee and South Carolina.
There's going to be a tree on a garage there advising a child been trapped in the garage.
Where officials say a falling tree killed a 15-year-old. While in Alabama, lightning struck and killed a 28-year-old man. As the wild weather closed in, thousands of flight delays on the East Coast meant some travelers had to find another way home.
At this point, we are going to try to rent a car and just drive.
And guys, some of the busiest airports across the country still playing catch up this morning, but nothing like what we saw last night. And here in LaGuardia, I just checked, roughly 31 delays and cancellations. So some signs that things are starting to improve.
Starting to improve, but still not nothing. All right, Kathy, thank you so much.
Let's bring in NBC News meteorologist Angie Lassman.
Yeah, she's tracking the storms in the Northeast. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. We're still dealing with some of this lingering shower, but it's more New England based. Some of those areas, Tennessee, stretching to the east, places like New York, where you just saw Kathy at LaGuardia, those are seeing much drier conditions in those spots. But again, still some rain across parts of New England, and we've got this new batch of some showers and thunderstorms that are stretching into parts of the Southeast. We'll talk about that in a moment, but let's focus on that exiting system, and it is doing just that, but it's taking a little while. We're going to still see some unsettled weather through the day today. That means some showers, some thunderstorms, and heavy rain at that. At times, we could potentially see some flooding concerns. As this system finally moves out, it'll really be into the second half of tomorrow where you can expect really dry conditions. We'll start to see those rain chances diminish slightly even into the later parts of today and into early tomorrow. But by tomorrow afternoon, most of that area should really be drying out. But between now now and then some impressive rainfall rates up to 2 inches per hour could lead us to pick up maybe another inch or 2 inches or even as high as 4 inches of rain across parts of New England, specifically Maine into New Hampshire and Vermont is where we'll see those highest amounts. But we could have another 1/4 of an inch in places like Boston and stretching up into parts of New York. So that's that system. Now we look ahead to the next system that's going to work across the country. This is some thunderstorms that are out ahead of it. You can see stretching basically from Oklahoma all the way into parts of Arkansas. We have a thunderstorm watch that has been in effect for a couple of hours now. We'll keep that with us as you see just how robust this line of thunderstorms is as it moves a little farther to the south and east. This system is going to continue to pop up some of these thunderstorms ahead of it. We'll also see some stronger storms developing in parts of the plains as this emerges out of the Rockies today and then moves its way to the east. That's where we see more of those thunderstorms developing and potentially becoming strong to even severe for tomorrow. That risk, though, will be stretched from Oklahoma to Tennessee. So we got a couple of rounds of this that we'll have to deal with through the next couple of days. Here's the severe threat from this afternoon into tonight. It's 7 million people. Remember, I said parts of the plains and then the southeast, major cities like Jacksonville, Montgomery, Denver, all included in this. And it'll be the same kind of impacts that we've been seeing for a couple of days in other spots. So the large hail up to 2 inches, those wind gusts, and even a couple of tornadoes possible. The threat will move really to center over parts of the Midwest and the southeast here over Wednesday afternoon, though. 15 million people, guys, will be at risk for this. So we'll have to watch for that in the afternoon and evening hours tomorrow.
Still so much going on. Angie, thank you so much.
A natural disaster in South Korea is derailing what was supposed to be an international meeting of young scouts from around the world. But now with a massive typhoon threatening the World Scout Jamboree, leaders are turning to Plan B. NBC News foreign correspondent Janice Mackey-Frayer has those details.
This morning, extreme weather warnings in South Korea derailing the World Scout Jamboree. 36,000 scouts from 156 countries, including the U.S., are now on the move, forced to evacuate their campsite to avoid a looming typhoon. South Korea's government scrambling to assure parents their kids are safe. But the event has been plagued by setbacks since it started last week during the country's worst heat wave in years. Hundreds of young people falling ill, some collapsing from heat exhaustion. At the campsite, complaints of no shade and not enough water. U.S. Scout leaders called an online meeting with parents.
If this had happened in the U.S., it would have been flagged as a catastrophic health issue and they would have been shut down.
Adventurer Bear Grylls, a chief scout, was at the site, posting to social media, "The truth is a jamboree is wherever scouts are," adding, "We will improvise, adapt, overcome, or pull out." That's what the American contingent did over the weekend, moving to a U.S. military base near Seoul. Heather Wishart-Smith's son, who's 15, is there and making the most of it.
Might not have been the experience that we were hoping for, but it's still the experience of a lifetime.
Most of the teens did years of fundraising to pay their way. Organizers say the global gathering, a sort of scouting Olympics held every 4 years, will continue, even with the participants now scattered. A scout's motto, be prepared, though few, it seems, were ready for this.
Our thanks to Janice Mackey-Frayer for that report.
Well, there are new developments this morning tied to former President Donald Trump's ongoing legal troubles. A federal judge has ordered a hearing for later this week to settle a dispute over the handling of evidence in one of the cases he's involved in. From where we're joined by NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell in Washington. Hey, Kelly, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah. The former president was up late and he was on fire on his social media, posting about his indictments until about 1 o'clock in the morning. The special counsel worked after normal business hours, too, and filed a new response that directly accused Mr. Trump of wanting to try this latest case in the media and not the courtroom.
This morning, Donald Trump versus the special counsel, playing out in the courts and in public.
We call it a sham indictment.
We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone.
The most recent battle over a protective order requested by the special counsel, intended to protect evidence that will be shared with the Trump legal team, that Mr. Trump could make public. Those concerns prompted by the former president's own megaphone. From campaign rallies,
and it is an outrageous criminalization of political speech,
to his social media blasts.
No, I shouldn't have a protective order placed on me because it would impinge upon my right to free speech. Jack Smith, the special counsel, is now frequently the focus of the former president's fury.
Jack Smith, he's a deranged human being. You take a look at that face, you say, that guy is a sick man.
Smith's team noting Mr. Trump's history of speaking openly about witnesses, lawyers, judges, and others involved in his cases. Worried that if he were to expose evidence like grand jury transcripts in public, that could have a harmful, chilling effect on witnesses. Trump's lawyers argued his rights are at risk.
President Trump being attacked for his First Amendment rights.
But the former president's lawyers say he would accept some rules on the most sensitive government evidence, urging a more limited order. The former president's 2024 rival, Chris Christie, once a federal prosecutor, argues there are limits on free speech.
Is this the kind of conduct that the Republican Party or the American people want from someone who's going to be president?
And the judge overseeing the Washington case that's about election-related charges is setting new, and it's notably shorter deadlines to try to resolve this specific dispute about the protective order. She wants both sides to agree to a hearing time by the end of this week. We know that the Trump legal side wants to extend this. The special counsel wants this to move in a speedy fashion. And now the judge is weighing in and says, let's get this done this week. Savannah?
All right, Kelly O'Donnell, thank you so much.
Over in Ukraine, emergency crews are picking up the pieces after last night's Russian attack in the eastern Donetsk region. Multiple people were killed. Dozens were left injured after two back-to-back missile strikes. The attack comes as Ukrainian officials say they've arrested a woman in connection with an alleged plot to assassinate President Zelensky. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel joins us with the latest. Richard, good morning.
Good morning. First on that alleged assassination plot. Ukrainian intelligence says the suspect, supposedly an informant working for Russia, was working in a shop in Ukraine selling military supplies to Ukrainian soldiers, and that she was also gathering information about President Zelensky's movements and passing along targeting information about Ukraine's defenses to Moscow.
Russia overnight carried out what's known as a double tap. A sinister kind of attack, firing a missile at an apartment building full of civilians in eastern Ukraine, and then striking it again to kill first responders. At least 7 people were killed, including rescue workers. Russia was busy last night, the military releasing more footage of its troops pounding Ukraine's defenses. President Zelensky denounced the new attacks. He hasn't stopped giving his usual nightly addresses and is staying high profile, even after Ukraine's main intelligence service announced just yesterday that it had thwarted a plot to kill him. Ukraine arrested this woman, claiming to have caught her red-handed collecting information about Zelensky's movements during this trip to Mykolaiv late last month. The goal, Ukraine says, was to target Zelensky with a Russian airstrike. The Kremlin hasn't commented, but it's yet another sign that this war is entering uncharted territory as it escalates out of the region and away from the trenches. Drone attacks Russia blames on Ukraine are increasing in Moscow. And a sea drone last week, along with Russian strikes on the coastal city of Odessa, have turned the Black Sea into a hostile front. And President Vladimir Putin and his main ally, President Xi, are projecting their power far beyond the region, sending a message to the United States, Ukraine's primary backer. A patrol of 11 Chinese and Russian warships cruised together near Alaska, only leaving recently. The Pentagon saying there was no direct threat, but sending 4 destroyers and a reconnaissance plane as a warning.
China also took part in Ukraine peace talks that ended this weekend in Saudi Arabia without an agreement. U.S. officials described China's participation as productive, and negotiators agreed to meet for another round. Joe?
All right, Richard, thank you so much. Coming up on Morning News Now, you may have noticed the pumpkin spice craze is gaining steam a little earlier this year at your favorite coffee purveyor. It's only August 8th, and we're already seeing ads for those sensational seasonal sips. Some even have them already in the store. So what's going on? And if you're a hand, when can you get your hands on that perfect PSL? I've got all the answers coming up later in the hour.
Love fall, but it's too early. First, though, a critical special election in Ohio that could have a ripple effect on abortion access in the state. We have got the state of play after this.
Welcome back. Today is Election Day in Ohio. At stake is a ballot measure called Issue 1.
Voters will decide on whether to raise the threshold for amending the state's constitution from a simple majority up to 60%. NBC's Ali Vitale joins us from Columbus with more on what we can expect today. Hey, Ali, good morning. So kind of two things I want to ask you about just to kick this conversation off here first. This vote is about the state's constitution. Walk us through exactly what that looks like, what's going to need to pass this, but then also the fact that really the reason that we're having this conversation is because of the impact that it could have on specific issues, specific rights, right? Explain the stakes here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is best described right now, Savannah, as a proxy battle. Technically, voters are about to vote on ways that their constitution can be amended going forward. Right now, all it takes is a simple majority. What this vote would do if Issue 1 passes is make that a 60% threshold. This special election came about, though, because there's a ballot initiative coming up in November, just a few months from now, that would enshrine protections in the Constitution for abortion access. This is a state where Republicans really do have a stronghold on power. Even though they had gotten rid of special elections in August, they popped this one up just to say that they wanted to make changes to the Constitution or the way that the Constitution is amended. I asked the Lieutenant Governor himself about that. The fact that critics of this move say that this is a battle about the Constitution when it's really a battle about abortion access, and this is what he said.
I think that it's a combination of events that many Ohioans, particularly people who have to fund the opposition campaigns, are tired of out-of-state interests trying to come in and amend our Constitution. And that convergence of events of both the Dobbs decision and a growing frustration over this on a variety of issues. If you want to change the law, change the law. You can do that with a simple majority. But in the Constitution, we should have a higher standard.
So look, you're hearing the Lieutenant Governor there not shy away from the fact that this is something that Republicans did in direct response to the Dobbs decision last year and also to this coming constitutional amendment proposal in November. But he's also trying to argue that this is a confluence of other events like the amount of outside money flowing into the state, which we've been tracking, and both sides, pro and against this amendment, this issue, have both been pouring money in. But nevertheless, those are the reasons for voting on this issue.
Let's talk about those who are against this move. I know you spoke with some of those opponents. What are they saying?
And this is not a clean-cut party line issue either, Joe. I spoke with one of the Republican state lawmakers who actually wants to vote against Issue 1. To him, he says that this is the wrong battle for his party to be having. Watch.
Maybe we should spend more time thinking through things before taking this step. And I'm afraid this was rushed a little bit. Because we had to make a certain deadline to be able to get it done. Right. And I think it could have borne a little more debate. And I'm not sure if I would have voted to put it on the ballot if it wasn't in that rushed format.
And look, again, Representative Callender is a Republican here. He made the point when we were talking that it's fair to debate what it takes to amend a state constitution. It's been amended about 100 times before under these simple majority rules. He just thinks this is probably not the right forum for which his party should do it.
So, Ali, tell us, what are we watching for following today's vote? Where does this go from here, both just in terms of the actual Constitution and amending that, but also the abortion conversation that we're having?
Look, in the immediate term, if this issue passes tonight, it means that it's harder to amend the state constitution going forward. The immediate impact of that is going to be seen just a few months down the road in November when it changes the ways that advocates of enshrining abortion protections into the Ohio Constitution will have to make moves to go about that at the ballot box. If it fails, I think it teaches a lesson once again to Republicans about the power and motivating power of this issue, even in red states. I got to tell you guys, I've been talking to grassroots organizers at the door, and they say even in the dog days of summer, an August special election, people are tuned in here.
Ali, thank you so much. Great reporting.
International news now. Thousands took to the streets of Haiti to march for better protections from gang violence.
NBC News foreign correspondent Josh Letterman joins us now. Hey, Josh, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Savannah. Several thousand marched with their faces covered through the streets of the Haitian capital, demanding that the government do something about rampant gang violence, rape, and pillaging they say has made daily life unlivable there. Now, the UN says there have already been 300 kidnappings this year in Haiti, and now the UN Security Council is considering sending in an international armed force. Now to Slovenia, where at least 6 people are dead in massive flooding and extreme weather that the prime minister is calling the worst disaster to ever hit Slovenia. An entire month's rain, get this, fell in less than 1 day. Now, the flooding has caused rivers to spill over into towns, wiping out roads and infrastructure and causing at least $500 million of damage. And finally, to Mexico, where workers who were building a new airport found something they weren't quite expecting. It's an ancient fossilized flamingo egg that's between 8,000 and 12,000 years old, which would date it to the most recent ice age. It is remarkably preserved and incredibly rare. It is only the second such egg ever discovered and the first to be discovered in the Americas. Guys?
Very cool. Sounds like the opening scene of a movie, like a sci-fi movie or something.
Yeah, it totally does. Yeah, ancient flamingo. Josh, thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Coming up, some fresh COVID concerns this morning as many kids across the country gear up to head back to school. What's behind a troubling recent uptick in hospitalizations? What you can do to keep your family safe this season.
And adding to those classroom troubles, many districts are once again struggling with a daunting teacher shortage. Why some are now calling it quits and what some states are doing to fill the gaps. That's next on Morning News Now. We are back, and COVID might be on the rise again after months of seeing cases on the decline. According to the CDC, hospitalizations have been rising since the beginning of last month. The agency reported more than 8,000 new hospital admissions for the week ending July 22nd.
Now, that is still low compared with this time last year when the number was more than 44,000. However, it is back to school time, another factor that's leaving medical experts and parents alike worried over these increasing COVID cases. NBC News senior medical correspondent Dr. John Torres is here. So why do we think COVID cases are going up? Should we be alarmed at all about the increase that maybe it could get worse?
You know, it's interesting because if you look at last year, the COVID cases went up because we were starting to get that new variant here and it was starting to circulate through. And now we know in the winter, you know, COVID cases go up because we congregate indoors. Well, guess what's happened over the last month or so? It's been so hot that it's been pushing people inside. And so we've been congregating indoors more. And the ventilation hasn't been there because everybody's turning the air conditioner on and shutting the windows. And so COVID spreads that way. Like you mentioned, it isn't spreading that much, but it is spreading more. The other thing is we have a new variant of concern. Have you guys heard of the Eris variant?
Yes.
The EG5? Yeah, that is the most prominent variant right now. It's around 17%. If you look at XBB, it's still 70%, all the different XBB variants, but there's about 8 of them. But that EG5 is the one that's starting to pop up right now. How concerned? It's not any worse than the other ones, and the bump is just a little bit. So, again, you know, use the same precautions you've been using over the last month or year or so. Make sure you're safe.
The other thing that drives people indoors is school, heading back into the classroom. And, of course, that's kids. How worried should parents be? Anything they should keep in mind?
Well, they certainly want to make sure that they're prepared to go back to school. And that means, you know, number one, getting the vaccination. And right now, if they haven't been vaccinated or they're vaccinated and haven't gotten the booster, look into getting that as well. When you go to school, you know, look at your school itself. Look at the masking requirements, the ventilation in your school is going to be extremely important. And what the CDC recommends, and I agree with, is look at what's happening in your county. And they're not counting cases anymore. They're counting hospitalizations. If those go up, if they get into the high area, kids might have to put masks back on in school. And that's okay. It's going to be very temporary, but it'll protect them. So just look at those things. Talk to your child about if somebody is wearing a mask, respect them. If you want to wear a mask, go ahead. Others should respect you as well.
Beyond COVID, I mean, kids going back to school, we know we are going to see more colds. We're going to see more viruses. So if you are a parent and your kid has some sniffles, should you keep them home just in case?
You should definitely keep them home because that's one of the things we know spreads in school are the colds and flu. That is the biggest driver of those when kids go back to school. So if they're sick, particularly if they have fevers, you want to keep them home till they're fever-free for 24 hours. If they're feeling just a little under the weather, but they're not coughing or sneezing, you know, you can look at them and say, man, you know, maybe I can send them to school for a day or two. If they start getting worse, though, particularly if they're coughing or sneezing, you want to make sure you don't send them there so others don't get sick.
The thing that we really haven't talked about in a long time, Dr. John, is getting boosters. Do you need them again? How many months has it been? A lot of people might not even remember, feel like they kind of did that, check that box already. But, right? I understand also there could be updated boosters.
I would have to go back and look and see what my last booster was, because I don't remember exactly. And they're going to update the booster with the XBB variant. They've already recommended that. The manufacturers are making it. They should be seeking FDA approval for that here soon. So we're thinking end of September, beginning of October, sometime in the fall, they'll be recommending those boosters. And they'll be recommending for people, 60 and above, people that are vulnerable, but others as well. And so we'll see what the recommendations are, but expected in the fall.
Dr. John, always great to see you. Thanks for coming by.
Speaking of schools, there is a nationwide shortage of teachers as we head into the new year. Many districts across the country are struggling to find teachers to fill those important vacant positions, and the shortage is having a greater impact on high poverty areas. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa joins us now from Chicago with more on this. Maggie, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. Yeah, these teacher shortages are so severe here in Illinois that the state's governor is actually proposing a 3-year pilot program to try to hire and retain more teachers. This with superintendents across the state saying that vacancy rates are as high as, if not higher than, they were last year. Basically, this is a serious problem playing out in districts across the country. As students head back to school for the start of another year, many districts nationwide are scrambling to find qualified teachers for every classroom. Some 51,000 teachers quit in May of this year, impacting kids and their families.
He got a letter from the school saying that he doesn't have a teacher, that he may have one before school starts.
Teachers qualified in subjects like science, math, and special ed are in especially short supply.
We're losing 300,000 teachers a year, and we're not getting enough people coming into the profession.
Concerns over school safety are a factor, along with post-pandemic burnout. Teacher pay has also stagnated, while the cost of a 4-year degree has skyrocketed.
Every teacher I know is working 2 to 3 jobs. We're doing DoorDash, we're doing Uber, we're doing waitressing.
In states like Florida, some teachers say political battles over education have become too much.
I quit my teaching job because of the banning of books, the low pay, the treatment of LGBTQ young people, staff, and adults, the whitewashing of Black history in America.
For dedicated professionals, it's often a difficult and emotional choice.
It killed me to leave my kids. Those are my kids.
Administrators are looking for solutions.
And then the temperature going down.
Including so-called grow your own programs that pay apprentice teachers and recruit candidates who might not have a traditional teaching background.
Now we're going to support you by paying you while you're training. You're an employee from day one, so the loyalty is built in.
In Maryland, grant money allows aides and support staff at this school for special needs kids to attend college and become educators.
We could go to college full-time and get a degree, fully paid for, tuition, books, all that good stuff, and really in my dream field, which is special education.
New pathways into the profession at a moment that requires creative solutions.
And Maggie, this shortage is even forcing some districts to turn to actually shortening the school week, right?
Yeah, you're talking about 4-day school weeks. We're actually seeing that more and more. In fact, one recent study shows that those 4-day weeks are the new normal in 850 districts across the country, and that's up from 650 in 2020. So think 850 up from 650 just in the last 3 years. That's how fast this is growing. Among the pros, experts say it definitely cuts costs. Also, attendance rates go up, as does morale. But a big con that a lot of parents point to is that a lot of studies show it contributes to learning loss among students, especially in the areas of English and math. Despite those cons, a lot of districts, a lot of administrators say, hey, clearly the status quo isn't working, and these teacher shortages are proof of that. Joe.
All right, Maggie, thank you so much.
Well, parental rights in schools has become a hot topic this election season. In some states like California and Florida, the term often means removing any mention of LGBTQ history from the curriculum. This debate is causing heated and, in some cases, violent school board meetings. NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett has a look at the debate and the national conservative network behind these pushes.
If you do not disperse, you will be arrested.
It's becoming a familiar scene in Southern California. Chaos erupting at school board meetings like this across the region.
They're molesting our kids' minds.
Angry parents showing up to protest what they call gender ideology being taught in schools. Part of a nationwide trend of self-identified parents' rights groups protesting curriculum dealing with race and the LGBTQ community. This one in Chino in response to a new policy that would require teachers to report to parents if their child wants to identify as non-binary or transgender.
They don't inform parents of what's going on. We're looking for the schools to open up and let parents know what's going on with their kids, with their gender identity, that type of stuff.
Violence has broken out at 3 separate protests in and around Los Angeles, with Proud Boys, who the Southern Poverty Law Center has labeled as a hate group, or their affiliates appearing outside at least 3 meetings this summer.
This may look like a grassroots movement, but there's a national conservative network fueling the fire, stoking fear in schools nationwide.
We are searching. That's why we come in contact with national groups, because we've reached out. Hey, how do you do this? You seem to know. You seem to have experience with it.
The proof is in the school boards.
Remove yourself.
Sonia Shaw is the newly elected school board president in Chino Unified School District. In the suburbs of Chino, Temecula, and Orange County, the boards have come to be dominated by conservatives like her, who have vowed to, as they put it, advocate for parental rights. In Temecula, the new school board dropped the K-5 history book over references to gay icon Harvey Milk, the first openly gay man to be elected to public office in California. The board calling him a pedophile, referring to reports that Milk engaged in a relationship with a teenager.
I want to talk to the parents in the Temecula School District.
The decision was reversed after the governor got involved. And in Glendale, violence led to 3 arrests at a recent school board meeting over whether to designate the month of June as Pride Month. Angie Javant's child is a student there.
It's like a moral panic starter set. To see these efforts being launched here, to see how they're echoing and being replicated in so many places is extremely disturbing, upsetting, enraging, sad.
Shaw was elected with the endorsement of local megachurch pastor Jack Hibbs. Hibbs is affiliated with the conservative group Turning Point USA and often appears with founder Charlie Kirk. He's also a regular on national conservative media and a force in local politics, turning out the vote for conservative candidates and causes.
This is a spiritual battle. This is a warfare. This is a rage against breaking up family units.
Shaw also signed an online pledge for a group called Moms for Liberty, a national organization that offers model school board resolutions tailored to specific states, with special fill-in-the-blank resolutions for states like California that don't have legislation defining parental rights. Since then, she's introduced a newly passed policy around gender identity.
A non-affirming house doesn't mean they're dangerous. Some would say a non-affirming house can actually be more healthy.
And one banning any non-government flags from the classroom, like Pride or Black Lives Matter flags.
It was causing so much division because they were political agenda flag.
These policies come off as anti-LGBTQ. What would you say to that?
It's absolutely incorrect. It's absolutely what they're going to try to do to debunk anything that we're doing to fight against Sacramento. That is a war on our children.
National groups like the Leadership Institute and Moms for Liberty hold trainings for parents and urge groups of activists to show up at school board meetings across the region and the country.
I think there's a national effort to capitalize on fear and use that against parents.
Christy Hurst is a mom of 3 students in the Chino School District and co-founder of Our Schools USA, which fights candidates she believes are too extreme.
This is not an organic bottom-up movement, it's top-down. And they travel regionally and create chaos, and they intimidate people at these school board meetings. I think that's also a tactic, and it's purposeful to get community members deterred from showing up.
He hit me!
Children across the country facing this kind of behavior from the adults in charge.
Get the out of here!
Thanks to Maura Barrett for that story. Well, the California Attorney General is now investigating the Chino Valley Unified School District over that policy requiring teachers to tell parents if a student asks to use a name or pronoun that differs from their records. Coming up today is Tuesday, August 8th, pretty much right in the middle of summer, right? So, Joe, why are we already hearing about pumpkin spice?
Well, the short answer is probably money, but after the break, I'm going to have more on why the corporate coffee gods are earlying up the festivities this year and when you can finally order up that PSL. That's next. Welcome back. Financial headlines now. L.A. is bracing for a massive walkout of its city workers.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other money news. Hey, Silvana.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Joe. Yeah, so it's not just Hollywood actors and writers that are on the picket line. More than 11,000 city workers in Los Angeles plan to strike for 24 hours starting today. Now, this includes many public services, including the sanitation department, the Port of Los Angeles, and at LAX. The union says members feel stretched thin amid hundreds of job vacancies in the city and cite repeated labor law violations by managers. It's the first strike by LA city workers in more than 40 years. Warner Brothers Discovery has big plans for its Max streaming service. CNBC has learned Max hopes to launch a live sports tier by early October, just in time for the Major League Baseball playoffs. It also aims to simulcast games from the NBA, NHL, and NCAA, including March Madness. The new Max plan, which will cost extra, will be branded under the Bleacher Report banner. Max won't exclusively stream any games until next year at the earliest. And TikTok is launching a live stream music competition similar to shows like The Voice and American Idol. Give Me the Mic is what it's called. Will be hosted on TikTok live streams and include live voting from fans. It's split into 3 parts: audition, semifinal, and the grand finale. Artists can now submit a 30-second audition video using the Gimme the Mic hashtag. The top 30 will advance to the semis. The U.S. finale will be on September 10th, and the winner will get to compete in a global contest. The winner of the U.S. contest will get 50,000 diamonds, which is TikTok's in-app currency, guys.
Right. I have no idea what that's worth in real life, but
I don't either. But Joe, can I just tell you, I know you have the story on pumpkin spice coming up, and I will just say how against this I am. Very
you
against
are on
it.
the record.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm on your team. I think you agree.
I just personally am not a pumpkin spice person.
Neither
If
am I.
people like
Same.
it and they want it now, it's none of my business, right?
No, see, I disagree. I think that makes us all feel like summer's coming to an end, and I'm not okay
I'm
with
still
that
trying
yet.
to enjoy summer. Exactly.
I love it in a few weeks. Anyway, Silvana, thanks. Well, if you're back in the office but still struggling to get stuff done, don't worry, you're not alone.
According to LinkedIn, as of January, 50% of workers say they were working primarily on site. As a result, some are saying they find it hard to get things done while they're in the office.
If that's the case for you, well, a new Wall Street Journal report says there's a reason for that, quote, working from home altered our brains, and we need more office time to fix them. Joining us now to discuss is Dr. Tom Carmichael. He's a professor and the chair of the neurology department at UCLA's David Geffen School of Medicine. Dr. Carmichael, thank you very much for joining us this morning. So, I mean, that's extreme. Working from home altered our brains. Explain that to us. What happened, and why are we having a hard time getting back on track?
Good morning. Well, there are sort of neural reasons why we're having trouble returning to the office. And one is we have an ability to selectively attend, focus, and state a task that requires practice. This is a system in the brain that's really top down. We control what we're interested in. We selectively attend to it. We tune things out. But a lot of it is also subconscious. Almost nothing comes into the brain that isn't filtered in some way by our preconceptions, our expectations, our intentions. And if we lose the ability to do that because we don't do it much on the isolated Zoom cavalcade that we have, the reduced inputs that we get in interacting with our coworkers, when we return to the office, all the unexpected inputs overwhelm our unpracticed ability to filter them out. A good example that we all know is the cocktail party conversation. We can be talking to someone and we can be in a noisy environment, but we can attend to the task that we have to express our intent to the other person. And we lose track of the ability to do that, and we lose practice in reinforcing the systems that mediate that.
So, Dr. Carmichael, I mean, several studies have shown people really can be productive when they are working remotely. We know some people prefer it. So knowing how effective work from home can be, what's the advice you have for people who are annoyed that they do have to come into the office maybe 2, 3, 4 times a week?
2 bits of advice. The first is practice. So in psychological studies and neuroscience, we find that this system can reinforce, and with practice, it can come back again. But the second is somewhat unexpected, and that is experience. Enjoy the experience of the unexpected, the visual stimuli we're not ready for or that overwhelm our intentions. Studies have also shown that leads to greater creativity. that when we're in the isolated environment of the boxes, we're really good at implementing ideas, but we're not so good at thinking out of the box and establishing new ones. And that often requires the unexpected stimulation and input that we get in an office environment, an in-person setting with a lot of the visual things that we don't normally have. And so practice and experience. One leads to better attention in the intensity and distractions of the office, but the second is unexpectedly lost in hybrid activities, and we can regain something new that we don't have with virtual work by returning to the office.
Wow. All right. Well, 73% of people say they need a better reason to go into the office than just company expectations. Right. But so obviously, that's something for employers to think about just in terms of getting people to come back. But Dr. Carmichael, thank you very much. We appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right. It's time. As fall rolls around, it's one of the most controversial flavors there is. Pumpkin spice. It can divide friend groups and coffee lovers alike, as we just demonstrated moments ago. Despite the haters, pumpkin spice is back yet again, and even a little earlier than usual this year. I took a look at why that is and just when you might be sipping that first pumpkin spice latte of the season.
Even though summer temps are blistering, nationwide an autumn trend is already brewing. The return of the pumpkin spice latte.
First one of the season, let's try it out.
The seasonal fall drink falling earlier on the calendar, sparking that yearly debate.
Iced pumpkin spice latte.
No, she's asking me for pumpkin. It's August.
Pumpkin spice is hitting the stores already. I'm out.
Experts say pumpkin-flavored products generate $500 million yearly in the U.S., which may explain why some companies seemingly start fall earlier and earlier every year. FYI, the PSL, Starbucks Pumpkin Spice Latte, generates hundreds of millions in sales alone.
When the pumpkin spice latte arrives, it's fall time period, and there's something nostalgic about fall.
Peter Dukes created the iconic PSL, the coffee giant's top seasonal beverage, in 2003, making this the 20th anniversary.
Maybe some people want to hold on to summer a little bit longer. They're not quite ready for fall.
Food blogger Marky Devos says the Starbucks fall menu could drop as early as August 24th, 6 days earlier than last year. And it's not the only company jumping on the fall bandwagon. Dunkin' exclusively tells NBC News the launch date for its fall menu is next Wednesday, August 16th. Krispy Kreme and Whole Foods are introducing their own pumpkin spice products in early August, along with 7-Eleven, which I visited last night.
You know it's a scam, right?
What?
Pumpkin spice latte. No pumpkin in it. Just pumpkin flavor.
The debate over pumpkin spice, even spicing up the banter here at Today.
I hate pumpkin spice latte. What don't you like about it?
Yeah.
Okay, there's no pumpkin in it. It's chemicals. It's artificial flavoring. Why?
I need something to cleanse my palate. Oh, I don't know. Battery acid? There's no pumpkin in it. There's no spice. There's berry latte. Stop it.
But for the naysayers who say it's way too early, Starbucks and other coffee chains typically offer iced versions of the fall treats that make for the perfect transition to say goodbye to the sweltering summer and hello to cooler temps ahead.
So we did ask Starbucks if it would confirm that August 24th fall release date that's been reported. No word on that just yet. No official confirmation. While these companies may already be in their fall eras, remember, it's just early August. The start of fall, the fall equinox, is September 23rd, which is a full month and a half
That's exactly
away,
right.
which is a good month before Halloween.
It's all exactly right, meaning we have so much of summer stretching before us. I don't care if it's iced. Doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
Not a summer drink at all.
But you just don't like it to begin with, right?
I don't like it to begin with, but you know how big I am on festive and holidays and
like
seasonal changes.
Yes.
I love fall. I love Halloween. I can't wait to get my skeletons out when it's time.
But if you haven't gotten into home goods lately,
no, I don't want to go. I don't want to see it. I don't want to be confused. All right. Anyway, well, let us know what you think. Coming up, the ageless athletes who are truly putting the gold back into their golden years.
After the break, we're going to introduce you to two of the incomparable competitors from this year's National Senior Games. They're just getting started. That is next on Morning News Now. Seems like nothing can stop Queen Bee and her hive, neither Mother Nature nor the D.C. Metro system. On Sunday, Beyonce's Renaissance World Tour's latest stop in Washington was met with heavy rain and lightning, which delayed the start of the show. Transit officials have shared that the Break My Soul singer paid $100,000 to keep the D.C. Metro trains running for an extra hour. That's 98 stations, just so her fans would have a way to get home. The Renaissance World Tour is currently making its way through its North American leg. How many times, Savannah, have you gone to a show and then the train takes
forever? Disaster.
Thank goodness Beyonce's thinking of
that. Is so cool. Also, yeah, I mean, never mind it taking forever. If it was just not running anymore, everybody would be stranded. That's awesome.
Kidding.
All right, thanks, Joe. Yep. Well, this is so exciting. We end this hour with a true testament to the saying, age is just a number. Seniors from across the country recently gathered in Pittsburgh for what's called the National Senior Games. This event featured almost 12,000 athletes, ages 50 and up, facing off in 20 different sports. Well, this morning we are joined by two of the amazing athletes, 85-year-old Irma DeMarzo, who won gold in women's tennis. She's right here on set with me, as well as 95-year-old Jack Eckenrode, who was the oldest athlete to complete the 20K cycling race. Good morning to both of you, Jack and Irma. Jack, we'll be right with you. Irma, I'll start with you. She's right next to me here in studio. So you took home gold in 2 events. You're a tennis player, is that right?
That's correct.
I'm going to need some tips from you, but just tell me what, this is the newest one, right?
This is the newest one for singles in the 85s, which I've just entered. And the other one is for mixed doubles.
What was it like to win 2 this year? And look at all these. Is it okay if I touch one of these while we talk?
Of course.
Okay, so tell me. So you won 2 gold.
2 gold.
How exciting was that?
Oh, it was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Really.
And how was the competition?
Competition was really good this year.
Yeah?
Yes, and I enjoyed every person I've met. Everybody. It is such a fabulous way to meet people. And through the years, you see them again. If you're starting out at 50, you have a long way to go.
Yeah,
till you get there.
Yeah, I've got some years, yes.
But then if you go every 2 years, you qualify in your state to go every 2 years. And then you meet the same people. Or it adds to it. There's more people.
Right.
And if the other sports are nearby, there are 23 or 4 sports now. I think they've just increased it. Pickleball is taking over.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Amazing. It's taking over the world. Never mind these games.
It's taking over the world.
Speaking of which, have you met Jack? Do y'all know each other?
I have not met Jack.
Oh, Jack, okay. Well, Jack, we're waving at you. Hi, Jack. Okay, so you were the oldest athlete, as I said, to complete the 20K cycling race. How'd you do it? What kind of a training did you do before? How was it?
I've been biking all my life, and I bike every day if I can. I live in the country, and I'm near a bike trail, and I am very active on the trail. I've been doing this for 20 years. The Senior Olympics came to Pittsburgh 20 years ago, and my wife and I, we joined up, and we competed in the bike racing, and I competed in the running, the 50-yard dash and the 100-yard dash. And I did the same this year, and I got 2 of these this year.
You both got 2 of them. I love it. Jack,
last year I was in Fort Lauderdale, and I got 5 of these.
Oh, my gosh. Listen to that.
So I'm going downhill, I guess.
No, please. Hey, did you see the awesome pictures we had of you, Jack?
There I am putting the torch on.
I did that.
They picked me because I'm the oldest, not the best, maybe.
Oh, stop. Well, Irma says she was at that Pittsburgh, right? 20 years ago?
I was at the first Pittsburgh when you competed. I loved Pittsburgh. It was really great. Every place I've been to has been great.
We competed in Pittsburgh, and then in 2 years we went to Louisville.
Right.
And then we went up to Cleveland, and then we were down at Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then we were down at San Francisco, and we got a chance to bike across the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wasn't that fabulous?
If you want to be active, join us on the senior games.
So many people, so many great people that
2
you
years
meet.
from now, they'll be in Iowa, which isn't too far away.
I can't wait to go there.
Listen to this connection happening right now. Y'all got to be
Amazing.
friends. You need to
We
meet up
will.
in
I
person
will
at
be
this.
looking for you, Jack.
All right, we'll make sure we connect you
My
guys.
first one was in 1995.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. So you've been doing this for a long time now.
28 years. I can't. Next time. That's my doubles partner. My
There you
female.
go.
And those two girls have been playing with me for over. She beat me last year in Florida. And that guy, Doug, he runs the tennis for the Nationals. He does a phenomenal. You realize how many people he had, like over 800 people that he had to make.
And how great is this just for you to have this to look forward to be doing this every year, to have this keeping you in shape, all types of things.
Oh, of course, definitely. I need other things, of course. I play private tennis tournaments, but this is my love for so many years now.
Well, you know what?
It is.
You know what else you're going to start playing? With me. You're getting me out on the court. I need some tips.
Good. Where
Irma.
do you live?
I live here in New York, but sometimes I'm up in Westchester to play tennis, so we'll connect about it.
There is an indoor court downtown.
There you go. Irma, Jack, thank you both so much.
Thank
Congratulations
you.
on your many medals over the year, but these 4 newest between the two of you this year. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to talk to you. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now, but the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.